Hello chess lovers, Suren here, and in this video I want to share with you another impressive Yugoslav attack launched against the Sicilian Dragon. With white pieces playing legendary American chess grandmaster Larry Evans, who won US Championship 5 times, and his opponent is American International Master Bernard Zuckerman. Zuckerman is best known as an opening theoretician, and this game was played at 1966 US Championship. So Evans was playing with the white pieces opened up with e4, to which Zuckerman responded with Sicilian defense c5. As I've already mentioned, we are going to see a dragon variation. Knight f6, knight c3 and g6, there it goes. The razor sharp dragon is on the board, which leads to very dynamic and double-edged positions. Oops, in here black's answer was knight c6, f3, bishop g7, queen d2, black castled kingside, and white castled queenside. So white is choosing Yugoslav attack with castling queenside, and in here the other popular continuation starts with bishop c4. The difference between immediate castling queenside and bishop c4 is that now when you are castling queenside, this allows black to go for a very sharp line by making this d5 pawn sacrifice. Now if he takes d5, then knight takes d5, knight takes c6, then b takes c6. You can either play bishop d4 or you can capture on d5. And this is also a line which requires a huge theoretical knowledge. But in our game, instead of meeting castling queenside with d5, we have knight takes d4. Not the best continuation, and this is allowing white's dark squared bishop to occupy the long diagonal. I would rather call this a mediocre move, knight takes d4 is not really good. Bishop e6, king b1, queen c7, and white is proceeding with his attack h4. Rook c8. Black could stop white's advancement, but instead played rook c8 and h5. At the cost of sacrificing a pawn, white wants to open up the h file, a standard idea in Sicilian Dragon. In typical position, no one counts pawns, or in some cases even pieces, Knight takes h5, which is a terrible blunder. Yeah, this is too bad, and after this move, black gets a lost position. Well, I just can't understand how could Zuckerman play dragon variation in such a terrible way. He's known as an opening theoretician, but you know what? Even nowadays, 2000 players which know a little bit of theory in dragon variation won't play Sicilian Dragon in such a terrible way. At this point, at least, it was better to play g takes h5, just making things difficult, not allowing white to exchange the dark squared bishops with ease. If knight b5, then queen d8. Again, the position is not a pleasant one for black, but choosing this line is better. In this case, white should lose a precious time to exchange the dark squared bishop. But instead, after h5, we have knight takes h5, and there we have it, bishop takes g7. White is exchanging the dark squared bishops, thus making black's kingside vulnerable, and black recaptured with the king. g4, knight f6, queen h6 check, king g8. As we have reached the critical position, you can pause the video and try to find white's next moves. Ready? Now look, in here, even this simple g5 move is winning. If knight h5, then you can go for a standard exchange sacrifice, and then play bishop d3 with the threat of e5. And now if bishop c4, trying to neutralize white's light squared bishop, then knight d5 can follow. If queen d8, then rook h1. If queen f8, then queen takes h5. Yes, even this is winning. And then knight takes c8, but after king g8, Evans shows a stronger continuation, and he first sacrificed a pawn on e5. A very subtle move, and by making this pawn sacrifice, white is clearing the b1 h7 diagonal for the light squared bishop. And now the bishop can use his X-ray vision to target the pawn on h7. Black accepted the pawn sacrifice, and only now we have g5. Knight h5, bishop d3. Well, white could first go for an exchange sacrifice and only then play bishop d3, but we first see bishop d3, and after e4, only then rook takes h5 followed. The idea of playing e4 is that now if bishop takes e4, then black can play queen e5 followed by queen g7. The queen can somewhat hinder white's attack, but in our game after e4 we have rook takes h5 sacrifice, not allowing black to breathe, and then comes knight takes e4. Yeah, in here if we move like bishop takes e4, this is also strong, but black has this queen e5 move, and black can prolong his resistance, although there is a little hope of saving the game. Instead, in our game, we have knight takes e4, a very important move, and the threat is knight f6 check. Now, if queen e5, then knight f6, and then g takes f6 is also winning, but you can go for bishop takes h7. That is mating faster. Now, if g takes f6, then black should give up the queen. That's why in our game after knight takes e4, black played queen f4. Black is pinning the pawn on g5, but even this can't help black. There we have it, knight f6 check. It takes f6. Of course, no one is going to recapture with the g-pawn. There we have it, bishop takes h7 check, king h8, bishop f5 check, king g8, queen h7 check, king f8, and after queen h8 check, finally we have a resignation, because black king is getting checkmated in one, and definitely Bernard Zuckerman was not happy with getting checkmated with a single pawn. Yeah, white can announce a brutal checkmate with a pawn. That's why after queen h8 check, resignation followed. Now, this was a neat attack by Larry Evans, but let me repeat once again that Zuckerman's Dragon variation was really very terrible, and we saw absolutely no defense from black's side. So in the game we saw two very subtle moves. The first one was e5, and the other one, which you probably overlooked, was a very important bishop f5 move, with the idea of making the pawn on f6 defenseless. And now if king g8, then queen h7 check, and then white is managing to announce a checkmate as the pawn on f6 is not protected. Yeah, she takes f6 and we have a brutal checkmate on the board. In the end, a chess puzzle for you, where the task is to find the mating line for white. The task is simple, but the solution is marvelous, and I will wait for your answer in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Here are more suggestions for you. Feel free to check them out as well. I will see you in my next video. Take care.